Hi, and thank you for joining me on the last of the late 19th century lectures, which mostly concerns the bustle. And finally, we come to the last section of the bustle period. This is the hourglass, the final change in style before we move over into the beginning of the 20th century and the revolt against such artificial and structured garments for women. The hourglass came about because of bustle fatigue and also because there's increased independence for women. We're starting to see the movement of the suffragettes. So we start to see this sort of, no, I'm not going to wear that anymore. We still have a bustle. Now it's just a cork pad or a cloth pad on the rump. Eventually, it will become just a rear pleat. Also, we're starting to see women with a more tailored look, a more masculine cut, as we see here. Here's a tailored jacket worn over top that replaced the bodice, known as the blouse. So instead of bodices being fitted, we have a one size fits all, well, not one size fits all, but a more flexible blouse. Look, no overskirt, underskirt, a single skirt. Particularly well suited for day wear, these ensembles were called suits. Here you see she's wearing a waistcoat, double-breasted. Look, a little bit of a jabot there, and a bow tie. A little bit about the blouse. The blouse was not fitted like the bodice. It was looser. It had a band of fitted material at the waist. So for this reason, blouses were also called waists or shirt waists. Made of cotton, high collared, you can see here, long sleeves, sometimes, lots of times loose, but sometimes fitted, as you see in the upper one. And then lots of embroidery. And then they're buttoned up the front instead of the back. Incidentally, this is the difference. How do you tell the difference just between a blouse and a shirt? Well, it's the button placement. If you look at shirts, a button-down shirt, the buttons are on the right side there. So it's easier to button up yourself. If you do like I'm doing now, if you kind of pantomime buttoning up, usually, unless you're left-handed, you're buttoning with your right and holding the buttonhole with your left. Blouses are reversed. Buttonholes are on the left because they were often crafted by servants. So if the servants were right-handed and putting the blouse onto the lady of the house, they would put it on the left side so it would be easier for them to fasten up. So that is the big difference between a blouse and a shirt, button-down shirt. Continues to this day, though, even most women that I know, I don't know of any women who are dressed by, I don't know of anybody who's dressed by a servant today. So I don't know. Maybe somebody helps Trump get his pants on. Now we start to see the puff sleeve we hinted at are becoming even fuller. So this is a return to that romantic style of the leg of mutton sleeve. But it makes for a heavy, top-heavy silhouette. So you need skirts to flare out to offset this, and then a tiny corseted waist. So that's why we get the hourglass silhouette that gives this style its name, the hourglass figure. Here's some hourglass dresses. Princess line visiting dress, promenade dress, evening dress. You can see short sleeves, gloves, elbow-length gloves, and a low neckline. Now, towards the end of the century, this is pretty important. A Parisian corset maker who was also studying medicine named Inez Gaucher came up with what she thought was the perfect antidote for the stricture of corsets. This became known as the health corset there. Now what it is, had a straight front and curved in the back. The idea is you push the body around the way that you prevent pressure on the stomach and also prevent shifting of the internal organs. So you can see in this thing here, this long corset, it's a very long corset going down, into the thigh area, and then the bustle in the back, the curved bust in the back will push the bust forward and keep the hips back, relieve pressure on your organs, and give you the desired feminine shape. Here's the thing. The way it was structured, it would allow women to tighten it even more. For young women, in the teens, early 20s, the desired waist measurement was 16 inches. That's tiny. That's a tiny diameter. So what it did, it would make it even more unsafe, even more uncomfortable, and it created this distinctive S-bend curve, you can see, to the silhouette. So it caused even not only damage to internal organs, but now you're damaging the spine as well. So this is where you get this S shape. So we start to see this new S-curve look. You tucked it into the revealing hourglass style with the full top, strict tiny little waist, not even tinier, because they're just cramming them into these things. And then you put it in there. It also had this sort of monobosom effect. Contemporary observers and satirists noted that it looked like women were walking into a strong wind. So I guess you could also call this the Marcel Marceau style, if you were of enough wit. So this is, yeah, so another characteristic of the S-bend. Here's an actual, this is an actual photo. Look at the tiny little waist. Tiny. She's just squeezed in there until she's about to pop. It also, the thing about it is, it also had this carapace-like front. So it is flat, but it was just a straight facade. So it did not do any sort of separation or supported the breast. It just kind of pushed them in there. And then, because of the S-curve, it pushed them out. So the look becomes known as the monobosom, because you have the loose fit of the waist or blouse, and then you have this carapace-like corset over it. So you have, at the height of this period, the enhanced hourglass monobosom look. Okay, sportswear. A little bit about sportswear, because we had sports. Towards the end of the century, women engaged in a number of outdoor activities. Bicycling, hunting, swimming was popular. Here we see on the right a woman who was swimming in a proper princess line gown with tasteful bloomers, slippers that were waterproof, and of course, bicycling you can see here. Sort of these really nice full bloomers. It looks like a brown leather, double-breasted jacket. Stylish gaiters on her boots, as you can see. Oh, by the way, both of these, you still had to wear a corset. Let's not get crazy again, okay? An icon appeared, the Gibson Girl, which started in 1890s. American illustrator Charles Dana Gibson published a series of cartoons depicting what he saw as the ideal of feminine beauty. It was his wife, actually, who was the model. He came up with a tall woman with a long neck and a luxurious mane of hair, brunette or deep-browed, piled on her head. Small-waisted, but with an ample monobosom. Thanks, guys. And you can see this look just took off. Enormous influence on women's fashions. There was even a series of guidelines on what a Gibson girl should be. She should be aloof, but not haughty or arrogant. She should be intelligent, well-read, and cultured. She should appear vulnerable, but always be in control. Men chased her, she did not chase men, and she must cultivate an air of bemused attachment. So again, it is this idea of male wish fulfillment and fantasy, but there is sort of you see the hints of independence there with the Gibson girl. So hopefully we'll see where that takes them. So we start to see young girls duplicating the look. She is considered, the Gibson girl, the first graphic representation of a feminine ideal. So the forerunner of the Barbie doll or the supermodel there. So starts this sort of wave of selling things by producing, this is what a woman should be, according to men. Let's get that straight. Accessories of the time, pretty much the same as the previous period. We see a few notable exceptions. Sausage curls and winglets are out of style. Now we have a tight chignon bun high on the head and tight curls worn close to the forehead. Oh, and held in place with castor oil. Let's not forget that. Straw hats were very popular, decorated with feathers, boas, flowers, and yes, that is a bird. Also, mercury wings were very popular. Bonnets were old-fashioned, worn only by elderly women. Okay, let's move on to menswear, shall we? This shouldn't take too long. The sack coat reigned supreme. If you need an overcoat, it is a Chesterfield. Very indicative of this period in the late 19th century. A double-breasted coat with a velvet collar. Capes and coats were very important at this time. The Inverness cape here which was made for the cold climate of Scotland. Large and loose with full sleeves and an attached cape. Good for rainy climes. The Raglan coat, made popular by Lord Raglan. Long overcoat with small collar and lapels. Very distinctive feature is the Raglan sleeve, which to this day, particularly in sportswear, is very popular. This is the sleeve that extends up to the collar. You see, it doesn't stop down here. It goes all the way up. It's good for sports jerseys because that means it increases the range of motion and won't tear under the arm, in the armpit area. Formal evening wear, pretty much the same. You can see women had it tough because they had like 7 freaking dresses, 4 periods, over 4 periods. What do guys get? They get some spats. They get tie and tails, white waistcoat, white pleated shirt with pearl diamond studs, and a bow tie and a top hat. This became known as the tuxedo in America. In England, it was tie and tails, but tuxedo because first seen at New York's resort area of Tuxedo Park. Thus the name tuxedo. Sportswear. Tweed is king. We see lots more leisure time, disposable incomes, middle-class wealth. So we see sporting activities, outdoor activities, particularly among middle-class England, and particularly in England because it's such a beautiful country. Also, we're starting to see bicycles in use all the time, so we start to see a burgeoning fashion sportswear industry. And the fabric of choice for sportswear for both men and women is tweed. Durable, utilitarian, and comfortable to wear. What is tweed? Well, it's not a fiber. It's usually wool. It's a heavy, tough, textured wool yarn woven in the twill pattern, which, if you want to remember what that is, go all the way back to lecture number 1. And I'll explain that sort of herringbone pattern there, which I mentioned. The thickness of the wool, the pattern becomes even more pronounced. So you see this herringbone pattern. It is moisture resistant. It does not easily rip or tear. It is very popular among hunters who would wear tweed sack jackets, tweed waistcoats, and this interesting type of knee breeches called knickerbockers. Knickerbockers in the United States or in England, +4s. Usually because they went to your knee +4 inches. If they went to your knee +2 inches, they were known as +2s. I'm not making that up. That's true. And then, of course, when beating the bush, gaiters were worn. Golfing became popular, and golfers wore a popular type of jacket called the Norfolk jacket. It has a belt or half belt, which means you can see in this picture it's attached to the jacket itself. And then there's pleating on the back, which you can see gives a greater range of motion, whether you're swinging a golf club, raising a rifle, or trying to light your pipe. Also, this is an interesting garment introduced during the period called the Henley shirt. Originally worn by rowers at the annual boat regatta that has taken place every year since 1839 at Henley-on-Thames. It is a collarless pullover shirt with long fitted sleeves and 2 to 5 buttons in front. So embraced by it was knitted, it was popular, it was inexpensive, and embraced by the public ever since. When I was a younger, fitter man, I swore by Henley shirts, even though I don't row. The poke collar on shirts, the poke collar, people got tired of getting poked in the neck, I guess, and they pulled them back to the more comfortable wing collar. Also, you're starting to see the end of cravats and bow ties. They're still around. Bow ties are still around. But you're starting to see the long necktie, which is more practical for full days. It has a simpler knot, like the Windsor knot. Kind of a large triangular knot. And the 4 in hand, which is the one used today. If you're going to a formal daytime occasion, like a race at the Ascot Royale, you will wear an ascot. Or if you had a fancy afternoon wedding. An ascot here, sort of a cravat with a diamond stick pin held in place. Here we have pats. We have footwear called patent leather shoes. A finish of high gloss to the application of linseed oil-based lacquer. Patented, hence the name patent leather shoes. Oh, hats. They loved them hats, those guys. They like Homburgs, a stiff felt hat with a crease along the top of the crown. The deerstalker, a rural hunting cap. Favored by hunters, fishermen, and invaluable detectives, often worn with the Inverness cape. The bowler. Now the bowler and the bowler and the derby are different. The bowler is the working class hat, a hard felt hat worn as a dress hat by middle and working class men. Usually had a downward curving brim in front and rounder. The derby is a higher, more fashionable version of the bowler. You can see the brim is not so curved and it's got a higher, square crown. Boater is a straw hat used just what its name implies for boating, a sun shield while sailing. Sartorially, mustaches were fashionable, probably because people were eating mushrooms. Two in particular should know about: the walrus, the drooping bushy mustache popular in Germany, and the handlebar. Also a long mustache held in place with the generous application of mustache wax. Also among literary figures and politicians wearing a handlebar and the old beard a la Royale, now simply known as the Van Dyke. Okay, that's it. That's as far as we go. We simply have no time to cover the 20s. I went in 30s. I wish we did, but it ain't so, Joe. Instead of doing movie, film, play examples this time, since they are legion and you can see them anytime, anywhere, I wanted to apprise you of something you may not have known about, this sort of modern recreational activity called the tweed ride, which has been around for about 10 years, and I think it stopped during the pandemic, but should come up again, which is people dress up in Victorian and in Edwardian tweed, and they get on bicycles, and they go on a ride of their favorite city or town. You can see here, I don't know what this is, I think this was in Seattle, where we sally forth from Dolores Park, 19th Street Bell. Our destination, Irish coffee at the lovely Tosca Cafe. So as an added bonus, you get some alcohol at the end. Pictures of different ones. Here's some people on a tweed ride. There, you can see in their +4s, in their tweed jackets, and they're fetching bicycles. They're ready to go. Some get very fashionable. The more it's been on, the more you see people really adapting the fashion to their own personal styles, as you can see here. A little bit over the top, which is fine, all fine and good. All's fair in tweed. Here are some more fashionable tweed riders, as you can see. A couple of right nicely well fitted. Interesting sort of, I'm not sure what that is. There, it looks like it's sort of sewn on to his jacket. I love these girls on the left there with her +4s. There, maybe she's American, maybe knickerbockers. This is an international phenomenon, by the way, not just in America. And I love this girl here with these fanciful shorts, and then her sack jacket, waistcoat, and skew bow tie. And that's the end of it. That is the end of the late 19th century, and that is all the time we have for any sort of costume history lectures. So thank you for joining me and being patient with my mistakes, and have a good summer.